Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and briefly say I apologize. I didn't realize how long ago I posted the Miles one, and I kind of left you guys hanging. So, I had some computer issues, and I know, like, how are you a webcam model with computer issues? One computer for camming, I have one computer for filming. And my filming computer was not where it needed to be. So we went ahead and upgraded some stuff before I went to ABN this year. So, anyway, we're here to talk about the subject I have been least excited about and really confused about, which is the Jon part of my story. And every time I think about how I want to record this and how I want to present it to you guys, I end up getting like angry, annoyed with it, I guess, maybe. I don't really know how I want to say it, but I'm gonna kind of wing this because I don't quite, it was so long ago. And it's hard to think next month will be the 1 year ago that I filmed with Catfish, because I filmed in February. And it's been a really crazy year. But let's get into it and kind of talk about Jon. So I remember Jon came into my room. I noticed he hung out pretty frequently in my room. And usually when I see a screen name come into my room and stay in my room, or come into my room and leave and come back, that kind of puts like a little note in my head, like, keep an eye, this person's coming in and out. So he's either waiting around for a free show, he's shy, but I always kind of let them know, like, hey, I see you now. Like, you've been in my room like 6 times, back and forth. I don't know what you're looking for. I don't know if you're kind of just lingering around and waiting for a show, but hey, I see you. I have my eye on you. Usually if I see them come in and out after a couple days continuously, they usually end up getting permanently banned. Because usually that means they're waiting for a free ride. They're waiting for the next show, and that's a no-go for me. Anyway, he stayed in my room and never said anything. I don't remember exactly how the ice was broken, but I'm completely stumped. I don't know if he PM'd me first or I PM'd him first, but we got to talking, clearly. I like to get to know people that come into my room frequently. Usually I know if they're married, if they've been divorced, if they have kids. I usually know this about my regulars. So that's kind of where the friendship begins. Like, we start talking about family and we talk about friends. Well, he had an interesting story. You know, his wife died, or his fiance died in a car accident, which was a lie. The fiance never existed. He supposedly lived in Missouri. I'm not sure exactly why the locations were changed on my episode, but in my episode, or in my life, he was in Missouri, and according to my situation, like, he was like 6 hours away. So Jon lived in Missouri. He had no kids, no pets, he was just always working. Like, I found it really odd. And I always told Jon, how are you single? Like, you have no kids. You make great money. Which I never asked how much he made, but clearly he's tipped enough. I was like, you are such a giving person. How are you single? What is going on? And he just kept saying, I work so much that I don't focus on my personal life, which was heartbreaking. But we've all kind of been in that situation where we kind of let our personal life get the back burner, and we kind of work and kind of get ourselves together. So, and I've been in that situation on multiple occasions. I'm guilty of it now. So, I understood. What I liked about Jon was that he never bragged or showed his tips. What I mean by that is he never came in and started tipping for the chat room to see. He didn't want the attention. And he really just wanted my attention. We started talking about cars because I remember him bringing up cars pretty frequently, actually. And I asked him, I was like, well, what do you drive? And he told me at first he drove, his general get-around car was a Ford. So that was kind of an inside joke between us, was Fords and how they suck, whatever. It was me, just a way of teasing him. And he told me that his, like, weekend play car was a older Porsche. And at first I didn't think cha-ching. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, well, you were money hungry once you heard that. Well, no, because it's your car. What the fuck? Why would I get money hungry for your car? I don't know. Like, I knew he had a passion for restoring cars. Another thing that he was very proud of is he did a lot of house flipping. And with the house flipping, he donated a house to a family that lost their home. He restored the house completely. And I mean, that melted my heart. Any girl, it would melt anybody's heart. I mean, come on. So, I have a passion for redecorating and remodeling as well. So, I mean, obviously that perked up my ears. I have something in common with this guy. And I was like, okay. So that was actually one of our number one things. I felt like we had that connection. Like, we talked about remodeling and flipping houses all the time. I don't know if it was true or not. I remember doing a remodeling piece in one of my bathrooms, and as Miles, he gave me some advice on a cabinet that I was painting, which was awful advice, I might add. Horrible. And it was painting cabinets in my bathroom, which turned out a disaster. But I asked him for some advice on painting cabinets in my kitchen as Jon. I asked Jon. And the advice he gave me was on point and exactly what it needed to be. So that was actually one of my reasons why I never considered Jon being Miles, because, well, Miles' advice on a cabinet painting sucked, and Jon's advice on a cabinet was spot on and perfect. I don't really know how that went to be, but throughout the 3 years that I knew Miles as Jon, I tried to meet him at least 100 times. Each one of those times I was stood up. I remember the first time I went to meet him, I was dressed, I had my keys in my hand, and he texted me. He's like, wait. He said, I'm not ready yet. I'm really nervous. I said, okay. He had asked me in February. Keep in mind, he entered my room in November. He had asked me from December to February to meet him. And I mean, meeting a stranger on the internet on my website is, not tabooed, but it's risky because you don't know who is on the other end of that. So I finally agreed to meet him in February, and we started making plans to meet somewhere at the end of April, if I remember correctly. And I remember the dress I wore. It was a green dress. I was ready to meet. I was all done up. My roommate at the time, Mike knew about it, and he was okay with it. We were going to a public place. We were meeting. At that time, I don't think Mike knew the extent. I think he just knew that I was going to meet somebody. And I think at that time, there wasn't a love connection. I don't think there was a love connection at the time. And if there was, I didn't realize it. It wasn't until later that year that I knew that I was a little in deeper than I thought I was. This meeting was just to meet someone that had supported me so much, and he just wanted to meet. There was no sex talk. It was strictly a friend to, hang out. So Mike knew about it. It's totally cool as long as we were in a public place. And so I literally have my keys and my stuff, and I start walking towards the door, and he's like, wait, I'm not ready. I'm like, okay, what's up? And he's like, I'm just really nervous. I was like, okay, that's perfectly fine. I'm slightly nervous too. I don't really know what I'm getting into. So I waited an hour. I didn't hear anything. I waited 2 hours. Didn't hear anything. About the third hour, he started texting back. He's just like, I'm just really nervous. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around that day, I kind of just gave up, which was really disappointing because I had done my hair, I'd done my makeup, I expected to meet this person, and he didn't want to meet. I believe I got my hair done the day before. I really wanted to give a good impression. And it kind of started snowballing after that. He was like, maybe tomorrow. And I've never been in this situation where someone's like, let's meet, and then they don't want to meet. I've never been in that. So I will admit, there were times I was like, okay, cool, let me know. And months rolled around where I would literally clear my entire schedule. And he kept using the excuse that he hasn't been with anybody in a serious term besides his fiance. And he was nervous, and I tried to be very understanding, but at the same time, I was taking days off of work. I was clearing my schedules. And it was just day after day after day after day for like weeks that he kept saying he wanted to meet and he just wouldn't meet. And weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. He said he was scared that if he met me and something happened to me, basically the same thing that happened to his fiance. He was head over heels with his high school sweetheart, and she left the world too quick. And he was scared that if he met me, that he was going to lose me either in a similar way or just in general. I'm a very caring and understanding person. But after months and months of being stood up, not even telling me he can't meet, like I'm sitting in my car waiting to go, and he disappears for hours and hours. I don't hear from him. I'm not going to get into productions and filming because I know there is a very fine line that I could cross, and I don't want any problems if I unintentionally cross them. So we're going to strictly go with my story and none of the production talk. But I never, ever in my wildest dreams would have thought Miles was Jon. Miles was always talking about how he never had friends and he would do nothing to ever lose me. And I couldn't figure out why this guy didn't have a single friend in the world. Until I filmed. I remember it was August. And I was selling a product, and I don't want to get into names or anything, but I was selling this product. And it was supposed to be really, really, really good for your health. Like I said in my previous video, Miles had a ton of health issues. So I was selling this product. I was like, oh my God, Miles, you would totally benefit from it. And Miles was on board. I don't remember if he ever purchased it as Miles. And I was telling Jon about it. Jon was always about eat healthy. He was always taking runs, and this stuff was supposed to like help your joints and be really all around good for you. And I remember that night like it was yesterday. I was camming and I was in the kitchen in the corner by the sink, and I was talking to him about this health thing. I was texting him. He was supposed to get online, and I was telling him about this product and that he should really look into it since he's so, into his health. And I was explaining it to him, and I never got a reply back. And I was like, maybe he fell asleep. Another day goes by and I didn't hear from Jon, and I was like, Jon and I talked all day, every day. Didn't hear from him. A whole day goes by and I'm pretty worried, but generally Jon had never done that for that long. It was always just a few hours. So I thought, I was like, okay, he probably broke his phone and he's waiting for his phone replacement. I don't know. So, like I said, I don't try to expect people doing the worst. I just assume something happened. Not worst case scenario. But, I mean, there's reasons for everything. So I just assumed the phone was broken. And I kind of left it at that. Weeks go by. Or a week goes by. And I'm just like, I really don't know what to think. I went to talking to someone every single day to not talking at all. Like nothing. I was getting nothing back. At that time I was talking to Miles, and I almost never had Miles and Jon at the same time. I either always had Miles, like I had him in the beginning, or I had Jon. Very rarely was it them at the same time. If it was, they were arguing. I know, sounds weird. So the way the website is set up is you can actually have multiple accounts. What you do is, say you open Safari or an Internet Explorer. You can log into both of those browsers with different accounts on the website. So one account would be Miles, and he would have the other browser as Jon. Well, Miles was always my best friend. And he knew about Jon. He knew about Mike, of course, because Miles was the best friend. He knew everything. And I would always tell Miles, I don't know why Jon is standing me up. I'm there. I'm ready. I've never canceled. Is it something I'm doing? Well, Miles would get really upset. And he's like, I'm so pissed off at Jon. You're such a good person. I can't believe he's doing this to you. He's a piece of crap. I'm trying to keep it not as colorful as the actual story is. But I can't believe he's doing this to you. He's worthless. Please just leave him alone. Which was another reason why I never suspected Miles to be Jon. Because who goes and says that that other person that they're pretending to be is a piece of crap and he should stay away at all costs? Like, no. So he would actually be in the chat room, and this was one of the things I was shocked that never aired. He was actually in the chat room arguing with Jon. There were nights he would ruin my nights. Like, the room is vibing, you have all your regulars, everybody's hanging out, everybody's good. And then Miles would be like, I don't want to be in the chat room with that guy that keeps standing you up. He's a piece of crap. I wish you would just remove him completely. And I think in a way, he wanted me to, because he wouldn't have to make the decision to keep going or not. If I removed Jon completely, there wouldn't be an issue. But clearly, that never happened. So, yes, Miles was in the chat room arguing with Jon and saying things like, I'm not going to be in here with you. I know the things you do. And it kind of kills the vibe a little bit. And I don't really know why, but he would go into like a smaller window where he could just see me and chat with me and nobody would be there, but everybody else would be in the chat room. So Jon would write me and be like, do I need to go? I don't want to ruin your night. I'm like, no. Miles is just being emotional. He's looking out for his friend. I completely understand it. He's in PM view. He really doesn't want to be bothered. So just do your thing. And it's funny because, like, even here recently, I've asked some guys, like, hey, do you remember that night that Miles was arguing with his other account? They're like, wow, I remember that night. That's crazy that he's actually, like, arguing with himself. Yeah. Weird. So, back to the disappearing for the weeks. I didn't hear from him. All of a sudden, I got a text from a number I didn't have in my phone. And the number was a very similar number, was the same area code as his, which was St. Louis. And she was saying things like, I'm Jennifer, I'm his sister, and I didn't know that one day he stuck your name in my phone, and I completely forgot that he told me that if anything ever were to happen, to contact you. And I was like, oh, I've heard so much about you, like, what's going on? And she was saying Jon was in a horrible car accident where he had stopped at a light and the car behind him did not stop and pushed him into four-way ongoing traffic. And he was in a coma, and he's been in a coma for weeks. I should have did some homework. I don't really know the medical field. I don't know how long someone is in a coma. But Jon was in a coma for a couple weeks. And I talked to Jenny all day. And she would say things like, hey, she would write me and be like, hey, I'm headed to the hospital. Is there anything you want me to tell Jon? And I mean, your heart just melts. How do you not? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't get it. Whatever. So I'd be like, yeah, tell Jon I love him. I miss him. I'm here. I'm thinking about him. It was about a week of talking to Jenny that he started to show signs of coming back. And oh God, he gets an Oscar for playing the sisters so well. Every day she would have an update. Oh my God, today he showed signs. Nina, I really think it's working. He knows that you love him. He knows that you care about him. And I think he's coming back. And I remember one conversation where they said they lost him for a couple minutes. And Jennifer would text and she goes, you know why I think he went for a couple minutes? And at this point, I'm a big emotional ball bag. Like, I'm choked up. I have this lump in my throat that you get when you're not trying to cry. And, of course, I asked, why do you think he went? And her reply back was, I think he had a couple more things to say to Beth, which was his fiance. I think he kind of wanted her blessing. Oh my God. What girl would not suck up to that? And I was like, oh my God. Within 2 days, he miraculously got better. And she had his replacement phone because everything was damaged in the car accident. I remember throughout the years, months after this car accident, several months, I'm not talking like a month or 2 or 3, like we were 7 months after or so, I would ask him, like, how come you've never showed me pictures? Like, if you got into a car accident and showed in the newspaper after you've recovered and stuff, like, you'd be like, look at this. It made it in the paper. I made it. Like, I survived this. I survived a coma. I've went through things most people don't survive from. One of the things my mom and I were actually talking about was maybe after the car accident he kept not wanting to meet because we were still setting up meetings, was because his face maybe got really damaged in the car accident. Like, we really tried to justify why he didn't show. Maybe he became handicapped and he was too embarrassed to say it. I remember being on the phone with John for days. I remember falling asleep on the phone with him. I remember waking up and calling him. We would never get off the phone except for, like, to take a shower. We would stay on the phone all the time. Now, a lot of people thought I was in this for the money. I was using him. And I knew that stipulation was going to come out once it aired. But honest to God, it was never for the money. I never had to ask him for money. He knew I worked hard, and there was nights and days and pay periods that I was short. And he knew I was tired. He knew I was tired from staying up all day waiting for the text to say, come meet me, and then being up all night to work. And so throughout the time, he would fill in the blanks, like, hey, I still have to work. I have to work, all day until I get this X amount for pay period payout. And he was like, well, how much is that? And I'll be like, well, I'm 200 short this pay period. He'll be like, I'm setting it. Hey, take the next few days off. You do everything around the house. You do so much, so take the time off for yourself. I never had to ask him. Like, he always was like, how's this pay period going? It's going good. I got it. I never once told him something and was dishonest. If I didn't have my payday goal, I told him, and I told him how much it was. If I had payday goal, I told him. Like, no, I'm good this month. We made it. Or if he sent money for a specific thing. Like, he helped me put in some concrete in my backyard because I had a flooding issue. The money he sent went to the concrete. We were talking about some remodeling in the house, and I told him I needed to get the carpet out because I have too many dogs to have carpet. He sent the money for the labor for the flooring. And that's where it went to. I had all new floors put in the entire house. If he sent money to buy a certain outfit or to help pay for something, that's where it went to. And that goes with any of my guys. If my guys are like, hey, this is going to go, I want this money to go to your AVN fund for Vegas, that's where it went. It went to a special account that I used while I was at AVN or on vacation. It helped a lot with budgeting and spending and what not to spend. So there were times, like I said in the last video, that Miles disappeared. And like I said before, I never really had Miles and Jon at the same time. Almost never. And so Miles was gone.